Us, really enjoyed it as well. So our topic is, what does 5G mean for marketers? So to that point, let's dig in. Generally speaking, from a layman's perspective like me, what does it mean for consumers, and how is it different than the other generations?
Sure, that's a great question, Geoff. So I'll answer the first part first, and I'll go to the sort of the difference between generations. So what 5G basically is going to mean for consumers is we like to bucket in sort of three sort of buckets. The first is 5G, because of the advancements in mobile technology in the standard in this generation, is going to first and foremost make stuff work on your mobile phone that really hasn't worked in 4G. So there's been the promise of a lot of different really cool applications like Facebook Live, for example. But in a mobile environment, Facebook Live is not the best experience. There's buffering, there's skipping, and depending on the coverage area that you're in and the congestion on the network may or may not really be a good experience. So most people, use Facebook Live, for example, connected to Wi-Fi. So that's one example of something that really doesn't work optimally in a 4G world today. Well, with 5G, because of the increased bandwidth, the increased capacity, and the high speeds and low latency, things like Facebook Live are actually going to work as you sort of move through the network more seamlessly and provide a better experience for the audience. So that's kind of one example of stuff that gets fixed in 5G that kind of didn't work really, really well in 4G. And then the second bucket is really enhancements that application developers and service providers are going to be able to make to their applications because of 5G. So why do things get better in 5G than they were in 4G? An analogy I like to use is 4G, after sort of a number of years of deployment, really allowed for streaming music to be enjoyed by consumers, no matter where you are within the network. Pretty much you can stream music from anywhere on your mobile device. And even if you get into a low signal strength area, if you're jogging or walking and you go into sort of a wooded area or something, streaming music still sort of works. And you really don't have disruptions or interruptions in that listening experience. In 5G, that's going to be the same for video. So what you enjoy with streaming music today in 4G, you're going to be able to enjoy with streaming video in 5G and not worry about that live sporting event that you may be watching on your phone, or a breaking news item really buffering out or losing that connection because of poor signal strength or congestion. So it's going to enhance the capabilities of application developers to add new services, as well as create a better experience for the user because of the high speed, the capacity increases from the network providers, as well as the really low latency. And another example of that is really with gaming. Full multiplayer gaming is going to be something that comes to life in a 5G world on your mobile device, not only because of the speed and latency, but also because of the improvements made in these devices, where you're going to be able to have richer graphics, and because of low latency, you'll be able to actually play competitively against someone who may be playing on a desktop or a console, even though you're on your mobile device. So again, that's an enhancement in the mobile gaming experience that 5G will bring. And then the third bucket is really all about new stuff that hasn't even been invented yet. Nobody thought that when 4G launched, nobody conceived of Uber, right? So the shared economy, ride sharing was not even a thing, or it was taxi, or or calling a van or something like that. But really, the Uber concept was only enabled because of 4G, because of the data access that people have on their phones. So we're waiting for the next Uber, right? We're waiting for those application developers and the ecosystem of creative minds out there to invent that next killer app that really leverages the capabilities that 5G will bring and create that next quote unquote Uber. And so we're really excited to see what that looks like. It could come in the form of new devices and new device experiences. It could come in the form of augmented and virtual reality. So lots of different things that we're excited about, that we've seen demonstrations of, we've seen early indications of people working on some of these things. So that's the third bucket, is stuff that hasn't even been invented yet, that it's going to be really cool. And we never thought of it before, but in a 5G world, it's going to be possible. So, let's go. So those are the three sort of buckets of how we look at 5G and what it's going to bring, to the consumer. starting with your smartphone, but then increasingly very fast on other devices. And then the second part of your question is really kind of what's the difference between 3G, 4G, and 5G. And again, 3G really connected your phone to the internet for the first time. Before that, it was primarily a voice device, maybe some simple messaging, but 3G kind of enabled more rich multimedia messaging, email on the BlackBerry. Remember, everyone had a BlackBerry at one time. And so that's what 3G brought to your experience. 4G really brought mobile data to the platform for the first time, in addition to creating opportunities like the shared economy with things like Uber and DoorDash and those types of applications. Two examples I like to use where 4G really sort of reinvented our experience with our devices and changed our lives is around navigation and maps. Really, Waze and Google Maps were not possible in a 3G world, but they were made possible in a 4G world. And as you're traveling around, in your vehicle or even walking through a crowded urban street, really Google Maps and Waze are something that people use every day, again, enabled by 4G. So that's really interesting. Also, 4G really enabled mobile to become a viable and significant platform for both content delivery as well as advertising. So marketers could, for the first time, really leverage mobile as a platform, and the millions and millions of people, or billions of people now, that have smartphones, to be able to access them as an audience through that device, through mobile advertising. Again, not really capable of doing that in the 3G world, but 4G sort of brought that to life. So for marketers, 4G was an exciting time because it really was the advent of mobile becoming a marketing and advertising platform for the first time. And then, of course, we're now moving into 5G, which is going to create a whole new world for both consumers as well as enterprises, municipalities, cities, and marketers.
Yeah, I love the sort of far-reaching implications. And I also really like that you were able to thread the needle between the marketing and then the consumer side. And, to that end, I think, when you think about disruption and the advancement that 5G offers, you talked a little bit about the examples of Uber. If you're putting on your sort of like future hat and saying, where are things going? Like, just as your own opinion, not on behalf of Qualcomm or anything else, like what big shift in the short term and then in the long term? And you obviously touched on all of the sort of day-to-day things that we don't even really think about, but something surprising like, in the short term and then in the long term, I'd love your thoughts as well.
Sure. From a brand marketer's perspective, I'm really excited about more presence-based marketing in the short term. I think right away, marketers can start taking advantage of 5G, as the networks are deployed, as more and more people convert to a 5G device, with the advanced presence capabilities and the on-demand computing capabilities that 5G really brings. It's going to enable more real-time connection with your audience, assuming they've opted in to have a conversation with you. But that real-time interaction and that engagement, while taking presence into account, I think will make things more relevant for people at a certain place in time where they're more apt to take action and engage with you as a brand. So I think presence marketing and advanced presence marketing, because of the on-demand computing capabilities of 5G and the quick and instant continuous connection to the cloud, that's going to create a really, really rich opportunity for you to do more presence-based marketing. And it's also going to bring sort of in-app marketing and engagement, again, to a next level, to be more relevant, more timely because of the low latency, and again, because of the bandwidth and speed. So in the short term, I think presence, increased and better presence marketing will be something that marketers can take advantage of. What I'm really excited about for the long term is some of the things that that we've seen again on stages and in demonstrations and in keynotes, and that's really the advent of the mixture of augmented and virtual reality. And some people call it mixed reality. We call it here at Qualcomm XR, just to kind of cover everything. But really, the layered effects that you're going to be able to take advantage of with your content and with your messaging and with the types of advertising that marketers do and the types of engagement that you're trying to drive with your audience is going to be brought to a whole new level with the advent of augmented and virtual reality, and the devices that are going to be available to consumers to take advantage of an augmented or virtual experience. Starting out with, I know that you see the big head-mounted displays and you think that looks really stupid, and why would someone walk around with one of those on their head? But with the advent of Oculus and Oculus Quest 2 that just launched over the holiday season, which we're so happy and honored to be a part of, empowering that device with Snapdragon, we're seeing them get smaller, more light, more compact. And what you're going to see this year in 2021 is you're going to see a connected glasses play by a lot of device makers and mobile operators, where a companion glass, which looks like regular eyeglasses or maybe sunglasses, that you can put on your head, have your phone still in your pocket, but be engaged in a conversation with someone, and then bring a layered, augmented sort of layer of information and data to your conversational experience. So whether it's you're talking to your relative, your friend, or your wife or your spouse, and just having a conversation, and you say, "Oh, hey, can you? I can't understand what you're saying. It's not making sense to me. Can you show me?" And for them to be able to pop a visual up as you're having a conversation will be something that will be super cool and groundbreaking. I mean, if you're talking to your landscape architect and they're trying to tell you over the phone about a certain plant type or how it's going to look in your garden, or the pricing, bids that he got to redo your yard, to be able to have that conversation, but then also see what that plant will look like in your yard and see the pricing bid from the vendor in front of you while you're engaged in that conversation is going to be super special and really kind of change the way we interact with people. So from a marketing perspective, again, adding those layers onto the conversational experience for consumers is going to be super cool, and we're not that far away, believe it or not, from that. I think probably around the 2024 timeframe is when we'll see completely untethered, thin and light glass experiences that where you may not even need your phone with you, kind of like with a connected watch today, where you don't necessarily need to have your phone with you to interact with your life if your watch is connected to the network. Those types of glass types of executions are probably 3 years away, so 2 to 3 years away. So we're not that far away from it, but there's a lot of work still to be done within the ecosystem to make that a pleasurable experience, to make sure that people will enjoy wearing these glasses and they don't look super weird, and then also to create a content ecosystem of people to bring those experiences to deliver through these devices, so that there's a rich catalog and library of content that people will be compelling for people. And that's what's kind of happened with VR. We've seen VR, the technology sort of outpaced the availability of content for people to engage with. That's now catching up. And now you see growth in what was a nascent marketplace, for the last few years, now becoming more mainstream with the advent of devices like the Oculus. So excited about augmented and virtual reality, what that's going to bring to the whole marketing game for marketers, the rich layers of content that you're going to be able to deliver to your consumer or your audience. That's going to make it a more special interaction with them, and hopefully drive more engagement with them and attach them to your brand. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and what I think is sort of more of a longer term play. But I think presence marketing and advanced presence marketing is something that marketers will be able to take advantage of this year in 2021 as device proliferation continues around the world, and as the network coverage becomes nationwide for all the operators, no matter if you're here in the US or in other places. I think that's something that marketers can start taking advantage of this year.
That's really exciting, and it's also something to look forward to as a superhero nerd. I knowing that I'll be able to live some version of a Tony Stark life,
Right.
tap my glasses and get a heads-up display. Definitely looking forward to that. So would love to also, in light of where we've been as a society, remote learning, working from home, can you talk a little bit about 5G as it relates to again, some of the things that we might take for granted, like remote learning, and or true remote learning, where it's actually in areas that don't have as high connectivity or any connectivity, and what that means for us as a as a country and as a society globally.
Yeah, absolutely. We've all been experiencing in one way, shape, or form, virtualized or remote, work or school, or even just staying connected to our family and friends. And so it created a whole new world, and it accelerated the importance of connectivity to a level that we've never seen before. And what we believe is that it accelerated the technology adoption cycle probably by about 3 to 4 years. Nothing like a pandemic to kind of make people wake up and realize that they need technology, right? And I don't want to make light of that, but it really truly did accelerate. I mean, the amount of people upgrading their technology, upgrading their devices, changing their plans, screaming for more bandwidth, screaming for better connectivity, and quite frankly, the industry, the nation wasn't ready. And so that's accelerated the push from regulators to industry, right, to retailers, to consumers, to really up our game, and really make sure that everybody has access to stay connected, so that they can get work done, so that they can actually continue to learn, or that they can stay connected with family and friends when otherwise they would feel quite isolated. And so what we've seen is a lot of things. First of all, the digital divide has never been brought more to light than it has during this pandemic. People wanted to dismiss it. People wanted to say, well, everybody's got good Wi-Fi, right? Well, that's not the case. And it's been brought to light heavily during this pandemic that there are the served and there are the underserved. And it's when it comes to connectivity. And that's just unacceptable. I do not have good Wi-Fi connectivity at my house. I don't live out in the boonies. I live like 2 minutes from a major freeway, but I do not have great connectivity at my house. I am doing this Brand Innovators conference from my office because I was worried that my Wi-Fi would crap out during this. So I'm one of those people that doesn't have a good connection. And so Wi-Fi infrastructure, fiber infrastructure, or 60-year-old copper infrastructure, which is what's being delivered to my house today, is just not good enough. And we're seeing everybody struggle to be able to provide the connectivity that people need during this pandemic. So we are super hyper sensitive to that. And what we've been saying for the past couple of years about accelerating the adoption of 5G to bring better bandwidth, more capacity, higher speeds, and lower latency to a broader group of people has never been, sort of accentuated more than during the pandemic. The good news is that it's driven acceleration of the mobile operators, of the regulators, to kind of move in a direction of filling that digital divide. 5G for sure will help with that because it is not a land-based, you don't have to dig up roads to actually bring that high-speed connectivity to people on a broad scale, right? So the more and more coverage that 5G sort of manifests itself into as the network operators build out their networks, it is going to bridge that divide, close that gap, and create the opportunity to deliver connectivity speeds and qualities of service and stability to a broader range of people. T-Mobile has done a fantastic job of addressing rural America, for example, and really going out big with their deployment of 5G services and 5G network infrastructure so that more people could take advantage of that in places that have been historically underserved. Verizon is building out their network as fast as they possibly can, AT&T as well here in the United States. So we're seeing that momentum, we're seeing that push. And I think by the end of this year, we're going to be living in a whole different world when it comes to the mobile infrastructure that can provide for connectivity for more people. And maybe I'll be looking at a 5G solution at my house to provide me my connectivity versus a 60-year-old copper infrastructure solution, because people just don't want their roads dug up anymore, right? To bring fiber, and it's a longer term, more arduous process than just providing wireless connection to people. We have been working with the mobile operators on fixed wireless access, which is basically bringing 5G to the home and then using a router like an Eero or a Google Wi-Fi or something like that to create a mesh network within your phone. So the connection point from the house to the infrastructure doesn't have to be through a cable. It doesn't have to be underground. It can be wireless. And fixed wireless access will be rolling out this year in a big way. Verizon's really committed to fixed wireless access. as well as the other operators. So we're excited about that. And that will help bridge the digital divide. We've been working with municipalities. We launched earlier this year the Small Business Accelerator Program, where we brought an ecosystem of partners together to really help small businesses who have struggled so greatly during this pandemic to keep their businesses alive, convert from a primarily physical-based business infrastructure to a mobile-first, digital-based infrastructure so they could actually do business. And we've provided them with both network connectivity as well as devices, always connected PCs, 5G smartphones, Wi-Fi routers, all sorts of connectivity equipment so they could convert their business models to be able to do business in more of a digital way than a physical way so they could keep their businesses alive. And we're deploying that. We picked 50 small businesses from all over the country that from entries that we had that were over 500 who just delivered compelling and emotionally heartstring stories about how they've been struggling and how a conversion of technology could really help their business. And we wish we could help more, and we hope to help more. And we've had great support from partners like Microsoft and Samsung and Best Buy for Business and Verizon on bringing that Small Business Accelerator Program to life so that we can help people, again, convert to mobile first and digital, save their businesses, and not only survive through the pandemic, but then thrive on the other side of it. Because they've converted to this digital first environment. So we're really, really attuned to what's happening with distance learning. And we've provided thousands and thousands and thousands of wirelessly connected laptops to school districts all over the country in partnership with Microsoft, in partnership with Verizon and AT&T, et cetera. We're working as hard as we can to help in any way we can. But man, if there's ever been a spotlight shown on the unevenness of connectivity and the fact that it's not a privilege or it's not a nice to have or a luxury, it's a necessity. And everybody needs to take a look at that. And we need to provide the infrastructure for people to get connected. We need to make devices affordable for people so that they can get access to them to stay connected. We need to do it on a personal level. We need to do it on a business level, and we need to do it on an educational level. And so really important stuff. We are a connectivity company in our heart, in our soul, in our DNA. So we take this very seriously and we take it to heart. Like I said, been trying to do everything we can to help in any way we can. And the good news about all this is on the other side of this pandemic, we're going to see reinvention of entire industries like healthcare and telemedicine. And first responders and how they interact and how they can react to crisis. Because the pandemic, again, caused us all to wake up and accelerate the types of applications, services, and inventions that the ecosystem can bring to market to help in a situation like we're in right now. So the other side looks really, really bright as we all kind of get through this and we see a light at the end of the tunnel. And then our world, in my opinion, and in Qualcomm's opinion, our world has changed forever.
Yeah, I think I really appreciate everything you said as it relates to, this notion of what companies should stand for, and the ethos of Qualcomm, is certainly played out in actions, not just words. I would love to kind of, as we're winding down, knowing you already have that foundation of you're executing on the social good, the societal betterment. Where does purpose marketing fit into Qualcomm's overarching marketing strategy? Because you're already doing all of this stuff, and as a sort of B2C client, I may not be aware that Qualcomm is powering all my devices. So how do you kind of bridge that gap?
Yeah, that's a great question, Geoff. And we wish we could do more. We always want to do more. And we're always constantly coming up with ideas. I think at the heart and soul of this company is technology development and invention. We are a company of inventors, and from our millions of patents and IP that we've created, that's really been life-changing and world-changing, to the fact that everything that we do is at its heart is really about the betterment of people's lives and the betterment of society. And so we believe technology, at its core, and as it's being developed and invented, should be developed and invented for good. and really about how we can deploy societal changing technology so that people can improve their lives, enhance their businesses, learn more, grow more, be connected to the people they love more. And that is really at the core of what we do. So we have a purposeful mission in our sort of corporate narrative on how we look at invention and how we look at the development of technology. So that's really where we start. And then as we are inventing things and as we're bringing new things to life and we're looking at future generations of mobile technology, or as we're moving into new industries like automotive and bringing the car from a four wheels and a steering wheel and an engine to a connected device that not only is connected within the vehicle, again, for more entertainment or more convenience or more safety, but also connected to the world around it so that there are less accidents, so that there's less traffic, which I think, pre-pandemic, we all would have said, yeah, less traffic. So that those.
What I wouldn't give for traffic today.
What we wouldn't give for traffic, right? So it's with the advent of technology and how we develop it and then deliver it to a market segment or an industry that we're looking at these types of things. Automotive is a perfect example of what's coming, right? I mean, automotive makers are transforming themselves from, manufacturers of vehicles to deliverers of devices, really. Those devices happen to be on wheels, and they happen to be able to get you from point A to point B. And according to CES and General Motors, in the air sometime soon. Who wouldn't want a caddy in the air, right? So I was super excited about that. Powered by Snapdragon, of course. But yeah, so I mean, as we look at those types of industries and as we see the reinvention of automotive, and as we see, smart cities and the advent of the Internet of Things and billions and billions and billions of devices being connected to each other, as well as us being connected to each other, I think, we're really excited, but we have to make sure that we bring that purpose into everything we do and we continue down that path. There are scary things that are associated with technology. We understand that. We have a very strong partnership with Microsoft, really great collaboration with them. And I really personally, this is from me talking to you and the audience, love what Microsoft has done and the approach they've taken to technology from a security standpoint, how they've created a ethical, group to manage AI and how AI is delivered to the marketplace. I really love that. And again, that's just, it's a proof point to what I'm saying about you have to have that purpose in mind because technology can be scary and it can get away from us. We all watch the movies, right? The sci-fi movies where technology got away from a company or a government or a country or a world, right? And it created havoc. We have to be conscious of that and we have to be careful. And so I think being purposeful and keeping a moral compass when it comes to the invention and development of technology is super important to make sure that what we are doing is being used for good and being adopted for good. And also that we collectively as an ecosystem are all in this together and kind of rowing in the same direction when it comes to delivering for the good of and the well-being of each other and our neighbors, the business community, and society in general. So that's how we look at things and how I personally look at things as a marketer and putting the Qualcomm or the Snapdragon badge on things as we communicate with our audiences. That's something that's really important to me, and that's something that we continue to work on every day.
Thanks so much, Don. We could spend another 3 hours talking, but with the theme of 5G being lightning quick and efficient, we got it done in 30 minutes. Wanted to thank you for your time and thank Brand Innovators as well for facilitating this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Don and Geoff. Hope to have you guys back again for part 2 of the conversation.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Have a good one.